it gets me emotional. But in the car, it was just, I haven't never sobbed like that. Never sobbed like that.
Hi, and welcome to the Storia podcast where storytellers disrupt. I'm David Noronha.
And I am, let me just go to this, right? So I used to do this character, right? Before I introduced my name, because we've come on a theme about me doing my name in different accents. And I had this character called Clint, and Claire hates it. And he would go, "Oh, my name is Clint. You got to treat your woman nice. You got to treat your woman kind." And then he would end a phrase by doing this. And Claire hates it when I do that.
Surprising. Odd that your wife would not like that
But
character.
what's wrong with doing at the end of the thing?
So here's what I've learned about women in general.
Mm-hmm.
When we do goofy, unsexy things that please the teenage boy in us, typically they don't find it attractive, surprisingly enough, in grown men.
Which is weird, because with this face, it doesn't matter what I do, even if I go.
And now that we've covered the essential matters, please remember to like, subscribe, follow, and give us that 5-star review. I'm glad that you started with a little bit of levity, because we're actually going to kind of go into a topic that could be perceived as a little bit heavy.
Like making me want to kill myself?
No, sir. No, sir. We're going to grow old together and do rocking chairs on a porch. That's right. In Atlanta, the new Hollywood. But, we want to, in season 2, it feels like we're starting to explore some deeper topics and stuff. And I mentioned this to you, and that is the subject of disappointment, which comes up a lot for artists. I mean, maybe for all human beings, but I think maybe in unique ways for artists who are going out, maybe auditioning, submitting their work, doing that kind of stuff. So I want to kick off with this question, man, which is, what is that you're willing to share maybe one of the toughest or most disappointing things that you've had to deal with
As an artist, as an actor?
Anything.
I think, it's a great and very, very, very deep question. I think it's a great question. Navigating disappointment for me, I don't want to, there's no formula for it. I don't think, if I'm being honest, I think there's a preparation of your heart that you plan way in advance before any disappointment comes on.
Yeah, whether you know it or not, there's a plan.
There's always going to be disappointment. That scale of that disappointment, sometimes you have no idea how to prepare for it. It's like, you don't prepare for a battle in battle. You prepare before your quiet times with the Lord, your routines, all this kind of stuff, which in some way, hopefully will prepare you for disappointment. But for example, I'll just give you one area of disappointment in my life before we go into the artist side of things. This is not disappointment in a bad way. It was hard. My son was supposed to be moving to Washington like 6 months before he moved. And he told me he was moving, and the Lord had prepared me. I said, I think he's going to be moving sooner. That was disappointing, because it means we were empty nesters, but nothing prepares you for becoming an empty nester. I can do all the things that I did. And when we said goodbye to him, even though we know he's going to an amazing family, an amazing place, that level of loss in my life right now, I've not lost a parent, I've not lost a child, thank goodness. But that level of loss was so hard.
Yeah, you were grieving the kind of the premature, the earlier loss of your son, your last kid, your last baby leaving the nest.
And it was really hard. I don't think anything can prepare you for that.
Let me ask you a question, because your kids are older than mine. Though I'm already going to beat you to the punch. I am older than you.
Me. Yep.
But my kids are a little bit younger, and you've actually navigated something that I haven't, which is kids leaving the home. I mean, my eldest does now live outside of the home. He has his own apartment and stuff. But in your case, what surprised you or caught you off guard around your kid leaving the home?
How time goes so quickly. Like, we can say this all the time. And I say in my friend group, even when you're going through hard times with your young kids, cherish them, because before you know it, it's going to go. And I think the element of like, we say this all the time, but it's like time does go so quickly.
So how have you been handling Josh leaving? What is the processing or what does the day-to-day, week-to-week look like?
I mean, calling him every day. Yeah. I call him every day. I text him every day with both my kids. My daughter's out of the house, but she's still in Reading. Good night and good morning every single day. And in my adoration time, I just quote scripture over them for 15 minutes every single day. They're just always at the forefront of my mind. And it doesn't mean it's easy, but I guess, you do get used to a level of them not being there. And you just have to, there's an element of embracing the situation, no matter how hard it is, that you just have to embrace it, because there's nothing I can do to change it. All I can do is change my attitude towards it. That's the only thing.
I mean, the beautiful thing that I hear you say is disappointment usually means that some expectation that we had in this particular case is like, oh, my son left early, or maybe I didn't really fully realize, like in my body and my heart, what it would feel like for him not to be here, right? Yeah. There's just like this dissonance between what I wanted and reality. And then what I'm hearing you say is well, when a disappointing thing happens, we need to ultimately make peace with it. How have you moved, or how are you moving? It sounds like you're also staying connected in this particular case. And it sounds like you're also staying active in your faith to just bless your kids, even though they're not here. So you're staying active, it sounds like.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not trying to brush it under the carpet. Right. I'm not trying to not deal with my emotions. I'm trying to be very real. Like I said to Claire the other day, we have this thing where we say to each other, what time's Joshy coming back tonight? Or we have this thing of like,
like as a joke,
just as a joke, processing through. And also the fact that I say the days I'm really struggling today. I'll say it to the Lord, or I'll say it to myself, or I'll say it to Claire. I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling today.
Yeah, I actually, you were very vulnerable with me as well. Like on the lead up, I know that on several occasions in the month leading up to, you're like, man, it's been a tough day today.
Been a tough day. And I think as well, the 2 months before he was going to leave, I just cleared my calendar of meeting with any friends. And I just said, guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to be going dark. I need to spend as much time. And we would just sit and we just watch The Office and we do all that thing. And, the sobs were uncontrollable sobs. I didn't necessarily show it to him, but before we left, I wrote like a Hebraic blessing, which was just like, not in Hebrew, but in my words to my amazing son. And I just, it gets me emotional, but in the car, it was just, I never sobbed like that. Never sobbed like that.
But I love the way that you've, and you're in this beautiful season of a lot of new stuff, which we've shared on some episodes. But what I'm gathering and gleaning from what you're saying is you really, really acknowledged everything that you were feeling. You made use of the time that you have. I hear a lot of intentionality in looking at this moment that brought you some sadness and disappointment.
Yeah, it did. And I
think that's helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I think as an artist as well, I think you and I have both talked about this a lot. I think, when we first started and went to conservatory and started out, I think there's still some hurt about levels of where we thought our careers may have gone and may have not gone. Expectations. And I think sometimes that expectation could cause some level of disappointment, which ultimately you have to come to terms with and understand that the Lord is
you can be miserable for the rest of your life.
Or you can be miserable and bitter. Like, I mean, I think that disappointment has to be framed, and I don't know what the word is, but I don't want to lessen the kind of people like bereavement and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think life is going to throw you so many different things. And I do think sometimes we have to have a perspective shift. And I think the moment I notice that my heart is going into criticism or, is going into bitterness, I have to really reevaluate that stance. Because my parents aren't together. My parents have had such a tumultuous relationship over the last, 50 years they've been married, and then they were together, then they're not together. And then they recently were in the same house, and then they're not in the same house. And that causes a tremendous amount of pain. But I also realize there are only certain things in disappointment that I can control,
yes,
and things that I can't. And I have to know, where does the responsibility lie? If the responsibility doesn't lie with me, I can't take ownership of that.
Yeah. I mean, this is another principle that I'm hearing you state, which is just like really sussing out what one has control over and not.
Mm-hmm.
The other word that I want to highlight is the idea of expectations. You know, on yesterday I was thinking about this topic. It's something that I shared in one of our kind of chapel devotional times with our students yesterday, where we talked about this encounter that I had, that I shared on an earlier episode with God, where he shook disappointment out of me. And then I started thinking about this word. You know, me and my relationship with words, I'm just so curious about what their original meaning is, what's at the heart or the root of the etymology of the word. And
well, you're the Cuban Shakespeare.
You know, I've never been called that, but I think I'm going to put it on my CV from now on. But so I was just thinking about the word, and I might be, you know, fudging this a little bit, but I just happened to notice that the word appointment is inside disappointment. And typically the prefix dis means there's something wrong, bad, the opposite of appointment. And then I was thinking, okay, well, what is an appointment? Appointment is a meeting that I make with someone or about something, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started thinking, okay, well, what is an expectation? An expectation is this idea that I'm looking at this desire, this goal, this relationship, whatever it is that's creating, and I form an expectation, which we kind of can't help but do. I know we malign expectations. We say, oh, you can't put expectations. I don't know. That's a deeper conversation. I think we naturally, you know, if I have a friend, I have certain thoughts or longings or whatever about what the relationship might look like, or with my children, or with now I think there's unhealthy ones, and we can unpack that later. But so anyways, I was just thinking, okay, expectations. I'm looking at a situation or a relationship. I develop this expectation, and usually there's kind of this timeline, right? Think about your prayers to God. Like when we're asking for breakthrough, you know, we're usually asking for it for right now, even though we don't get it. So then I started thinking about this time component, and I thought, I wonder if disappointment is when my expectation wasn't met, when or how I wanted. And that disappointment is actually a confusion or a wrong appointment with a thing, or even an appointment. Maybe it's not wrong, because I certainly don't think there was anything wrong for you to be sad about your son leaving 6 months early. But notice what happened. You had an expectation to have him for 6 more months.
Yeah.
And when you found out that he was going to be leaving 6 months earlier, in a way, there was a disappointment, because you had that expectation to get another 6 months with him. And I started to go, just ask the Lord, so when we feel disappointed, what can we do with you to kind of sort it out? And, you know, God's timing is always perfect. So if he withholds something or causes or creates something to happen earlier, I have to assume that he's like the perfect producer. Like he knows exactly when that thing was supposed to be. Now, I don't know why. I don't know why Josh might have needed to have left 6 months earlier, or so on and so forth. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong there. But it just got me thinking, maybe disappointment is often created when I don't understand God's appointed time.
Yeah. And I think obviously outside of the cataclysmic disappointment of loss, but I think also,
I mean, even that, like think about like, I lose somebody before, like my mom, God forbid, my child or something dies too early.
Yes.
That is a disappointment, because I had an expectation that son,
of
that
course,
child, right, 100%. Would be living for another 90 years, right?
Yeah. I think outside of that, because I don't know how anybody can prepare for anything like that. And I don't know, no matter what routine, spiritual, you know, disciplines you have would ever prepare you for anything like that. But if we just talk on the day-to-day disappointments, I think going back to expectations, I think it's massively important to have expectations.
Talk to me. Why?
Because the thing is, if I don't have it's like a vision. If I don't have a vision, what am I going to do? Like if I invest in the stock market and I don't expect a return, then, you know, it's stupid, because I'm looking at the data and I'm going, I expect a return.
Yeah.
Will I get that return in this year? Well, it depends on the market. But the data shows over 20 years, whether I enter now when it's high or whether I enter when it's low,
What if I said to you, no, 100%. I mean, why else would you buy that stock? I mean, if you buy Apple, it's because you think Apple's going to go up. You're certainly not. All right. So let's shift this. And then I want to hear about how you've navigated disappointment potentially in your career as an actor, an artist. I wonder if this idea of expectations only becomes problematic when I actually haven't told you or communicated to you that I do. I wonder if it's not so much expectations are problematic, but unsaid expectations are the problem. Because if I place an expectation on you and I don't communicate that to you, then how can you even succeed? And how can you even tell me whether you agree to meet that expectation?
Well, you can't. I mean, when you expect something of somebody else, I think that has to be communicated.
Okay.
Or it's always presumed. Like it happens in marriage all the time. But I expected that. And I'm like, I can't read your mind. But when it's an expectation on myself, and I think if it's an expectation of the Lord, because the Lord is another person, I can't expect something from him. But there again, if I evoke his laws, then
and his promises,
there is his promises. There is an expectation for that to come back, right? Because there is an inevitability and an outcome in a law.
That's right.
Right. So I think that it's wrong that we don't have certain expectations. But about myself, I expect the best from myself. Now, if it's from an unhealthy place, I may never achieve that expectation. So I'm always going to be disappointed. But if I set that expectation in line with my habits and my routines, then there's no reason why I shouldn't put that expectation on myself and actually accomplish it.
Agreed. 100%. 100%. That's why I think it's overly simplistic to say that expectations or placing expectations. I think we can agree that it's unsaid, unknown, unconscious expectations that are the problem. All right. So I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, which is navigating disappointment as an actor, as an artist. And you even hinted at the fact that perhaps the goals or expectations that you had placed on your aspirations as an actor may or may not have been met. Did you fulfill the expectations that you sought as the young actor in the UK?
No, because I thought I'd be the next Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, me too. I thought I'd be a millionaire and Tom Cruise by age 30. So now I got to ask, how are you dealing with that today? How does that look like for you today? How have you navigated the fact that you expected to be the next Leonardo DiCaprio and that maybe you're not, or that it doesn't look like the way that you thought it would?
Well, I think life at our age, life teaches you so many different things. I think for one, I don't have an inch of the talent that Leonardo DiCaprio has. I also don't know now if that was something I would necessarily want now.
Interesting.
I mean, body of work maybe, but not necessarily the trappings that come with being the most famous actor in the planet. I think, how have I navigated disappointment? I think that I've learned to embrace the journey no matter where I am in my phase. And, even though I said the two things I said I would never do would be hairdressing and teaching, like I ended up having a hairdresser to support my family when I wasn't working. Very successful,
by the way.
Right. Thank you. When I wasn't working, but then now I'm a teacher. We both are.
We started a school.
And I'm like, well, there's beauty in that. Like, it's part of the journey. Like,
Do you regret starting off the journey to become an actor?
Hell no.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I look at everything. It's the same with you. I look at every single thing and go, I'm thankful for that blessing. Could I go back and maybe have stewarded the moments better? 100%. Okay. But it's made me who I am today. And I don't think I do occasionally look back and went, oh, when I was in Tomb Raider 2, if I would have stewarded that audition for Troy better. Maybe I would have got Troy. Then I would have been in a movie with Brad Pitt. And look at some of the missed opportunities that I think if I would have known what I know now, I would have done it differently. But that's just stupid reasoning. All I can do now is go, do I still want to act? And where does the fear come in? Oh, is my disappointment about maybe not? So here's the thing. Am I scared now to act because the old voice of disappointment is coming in and sabotaging, disqualifying me from doing it again? Now, there's always that. Is it going to stop me now? Probably not. But I still have to deal with that previous demon.
Sure.
of disappointment, thinking, well, it could be disappointment again. But I'm like, now it's just gravy.
Right.
Like
you have different expectations now on acting.
Different expectations. Yeah. And like for you, in Grays right now, you're recurring in Grays, and it's like, it's gravy.
Yeah. It's funny for me. It's actually in flux for me, honestly. And I think if we're honest, I think you and I have this dance that we're constantly doing with this first love that we had of acting, right? I mean, I don't know any actor that starts this crazy journey and takes such tremendous risk and decides to do one of like the toughest, careers in terms of like, not toughest in terms of there's harder things that you can do in life than be an actor, but in terms of like the stability and the linear or non-linear fashion of it. I don't know of any actor that didn't start because they thought, gosh, this feeling of being in front of the camera or the audience is so rewarding and exhilarating. And it is a kind of drug, a kind of heroin, honestly. I mean, I think I stumbled into it because I was a kid in high school who maybe lacked a little bit of attention because I had young parents. And I got applause and I got laughter and attention from girls. And I mean, that to a 16, 17-year-old mind is a pretty powerful drug. And then, admittedly, I remember transitioning and then really falling in love with the craft and reading Stanislavski's, book on method and whatnot, and then just be devouring the thing and falling in love with the actual substance of the thing. But I'd also be lying if that other thing, getting a laugh from a group of people or getting a response from a group of people for a performer, for an actor, will forever be a driver and a motivator. But for me today, the expectations that I have on acting are, I'm honestly, for the first time in a long time, rediscovering just the simple joy, the simple privilege and joy of like, I get to go do this. It doesn't have to add up to much more for me. I don't know any actor that wouldn't like a bigger role or more roles. Sure, that's there. I'm also really content and grateful when I just get to step on another set and be around people that are operating at some of the highest professional levels. And so in many ways, the need for significance, that for me, honestly, has that's gone. It's just rediscovering the joy. I mean, I think I've shared with you that I think one of my joys, I think I've confessed this to you, but I've never actually done a full Shakespearean piece. I just stumbled into TV, and I didn't really get, other than acting school, I didn't really have the privilege of doing any other plays, nor did I pursue it, to be honest. One of my dreams is to be like at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, just playing like the old King or Polonius or something, just get
King Lear. You'd be great King Lear.
I mean, my gosh, would I have to brush up? But all that to say that I actually now, in my 50s, am rediscovering the original joys of actually a lot of things. My kids, because you do start to see that they go. I mean, I'm watching you navigate this, and it's honestly brought, some focus to me. So disappointment for me, one of the things that I'm trying to do is just recognize that I'm in pain. Disappointment will feel like some form of pain. Like you, love what you said earlier. I'm trying to recognize, I'm in pain right now.
Absolutely.
There's something that I wanted. It didn't happen or hasn't happened. I'm sad. I'm mad. I'm disappointed. Look at it. Acknowledge it. If I do need to recalibrate expectations, maybe that. Or continue to fight and contend for the thing. Because sometimes disappointment just means, hey, I don't have it right now. I haven't gotten it yet. But sometimes, man, I'm going to keep driving after that thing because I want it and I am not ready to give up yet.
No, and I think that's why it's important to have expectations. Like, when it comes to my kids, I know deep down there is a relationship with the Lord there. They're not necessarily following now, but my expectation is they're going to come. If the Lord says my word doesn't return void, God's word is in them. And I'm like, Lord, I'm cashing in on that word that doesn't return void. And that's what I declare. I declare that, and I'm expectant. Now, can I control that? Of course I can't, but I'm communicating my expectations to him, and I know he loves them and is more desperate for them to have an encounter
even more than you. That's right.
But I'm cashing in on the lore of his word.
Well, because that promise, the remembrance of that promise, the reconnection with that in prayer, and that dialogue that you have with your loving Father, I don't know about you, because I have similar prayers in the morning for my kids and other loved ones as well that are maybe not there with the Lord right now. What I do is I remind myself and him of what he said and his promises.
Yeah.
And it does have, and I don't just think it's a spiritual pep talk or fictional, it realigns me and it lessens my disappointment because I realign back to, hey, he's an eternal father. These kids hopefully are going to live another 40, 50 years than I am. I hope to see it in my day.
Yep.
But ultimately, I just want to see him on the other side of the veil.
Absolutely.
Let me ask one last question, brother, as we wrap up this awesome conversation on disappointment. I'm having it's awesome to really enjoy a conversation around disappointment, but it's helpful to me. I know how deeply you love acting. Before you leave this planet, what's one thing that you'd like that would really like rock your world to do as an actor?
Oh my goodness, dude, if I would be completely honest,
Please do.
I don't know if I know. I don't know if I know. I think there are multiple things because I'm having this struggle with the Lord now going, do I love acting as much as I used to? And do I prefer directing way more than I love acting? And I don't know if I have the answer. I think I could give you a stock answer. But I don't know if I would. Like I'm watching I think it's I keep forgetting his name, Alan Ritson.
Okay.
Right now, Believer, the lead in Reacher.
Oh yeah. You sent me the clip.
Sent you the clip.
Brilliant clip. Oh my gosh.
I know, right? I think I would like to be in a TV show. I mean, I'm not 6'3" and built like a brick house, but I think I would love to do something like that. You know, I think that it's not about fame anymore, but I do think it's about influence.
It's about having that experience.
And it's about having that experience. And I think I'd love to do that in TV. If I'm being honest, I think to do more theater would be good. It just doesn't, until we have that passive income that allows us to do that, I don't know if I could afford to do theater right now, if I'm being completely honest.
I mean, listen, trust me. I mean, you know, when I was doing Jersey Boys, initially I was making $700 a week and I was going into debt being the lead in a show.
Oh, dude. I mean, like, how can you, I mean,
it's impossible. I mean, you certainly can't do it in a family in California. Like, I guess you can do it in your 20s when you're just kind of going show to show. All right. Well, here's the irony for me. The last wistful experience as an actor that I constantly reference and still think back to with such affection is when I did Of Mice and Men. So I think for me, ironically, I wonder if it's just tasting a little bit of what we haven't had in a while or something new or different. I think for me, not that I certainly would enjoy doing a role on TV or something like that. That would be fun. One of those action shows would be amazing.
Yeah.
But I think it would actually have to be a play, like I think like an old school Miller, Tennessee Williams, one of those kind of contemporary but American kind of classic pieces that has layers upon layers and just juicy dialogue. I think that would fill my bucket before I go home and
to
see
do
Jesus.
something like that in a big theater, like at the National,
or
somewhere that's like
a great regional or something, that's
a
like,
legacy theater, where you're like, that would be just fun, because at the end of the day, when you're an actor, the beauty is all I have to do is my research, show up and do the thing.
What Fab is confessing is that, when you have to direct, produce, or lead a school, there are way more spreadsheets and meetings and tedious things. I had exactly the same thought after directing Bright Ones. I got to go and do Jack Ryan, I forget the timeline. Anyway, I got to go do a TV show. And my only job was to learn my lines
and show up.
And as long as I was prepared for that scene, I was good. And then otherwise I was kicking back, binge watching something.
Yeah,
the 5-star hotel.
No, it's beautiful.
We're a bunch of babies. Honestly, we're so pampered.
And there is something beautiful about that.
Yeah, because you get to rest and just focus on one thing. No, I hear you, brother. I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, listen, if you're out there and you're an artist and you're moving through disappointment, I want to encourage you in a couple different ways. The outcome does not always look, specifically for us artists, if we're honest, it does not always look like but do not despise the small beginnings. Do not think that it's ever too late continue to pursue it. If it's on your heart, listen, if something else is calling you, there's way easier ways to make a living.
Yeah.
But if God placed this on your heart and you just don't want to get to the end of your life thinking, man, I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Absolutely.
All right. It's good hanging out with you, brother.
Good hanging out with you too. You've been watching Storia. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and download and leave us a comment.